Now I would like to introduce to y'all Jenn Thomas. First of all, I have to say that everyone looks good in orange, especially Gloria. And so here's a few little highlights from our year last year. And Jenn Thomas is our new field and data director for the whole state of North Carolina. You may know her as the Wake County Regional Director from previous election cycles. Jenn joined us in 2019 and has been through the roller coaster of elections and rapid growth for the organization since. So really excited for you to hear about our 2022 accomplishments and some of the data that she has to share. So turning it over to you, Jenn.
All right. Hey, everybody. So as Kate said, I'm Jenn Thomas. I'm the Field and Data Director. I'm coming to you from Cary, North Carolina. If we can go on and go to the next slide. Here are some of our 2022 accomplishments. I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you. We distributed over 100,000 fridge cards, which means we educated over 100,000 voters. We got 12,474 voter registrations. We registered voters in 8 detention centers across the state. We sent out 56,695 reminder texts to our pledgers. You may recall last year we did a pledge to vote program. And then these texts were the result of people for 2 years pledging to vote. And then closer to the election, we sent them these reminder texts and some emails as well, just to get them the information they needed, including a lot of students on that. We had from our relational GOTV or Get Out the Vote program, we estimated that we got voters to send 22,341 relational Get Out the Vote messages. And this is a program we did at early voting sites, all 17 days across the state, talking to people on their way out of the polls and asking them to just text 3 friends. And we had a QR code that pulled up like a very convenient web page, a link that they could send to folks to make sure they could find their early voting site, get the hours, get their sample ballots, all that information that folks need to vote. And really proud of this program. It was the first time we really ran this in a large scale way. And those 22,000 relational reminders are the equivalent of making over 250,000 phone calls, which I know a lot of you have done phone banking with us in the past. We still phone bank. We're going to keep phone banking, but talking to folks on their way out of the polls and getting them to text their friends is a lot more effective because you know who you pay attention to, your friends. If you phone bank with us, you know that the contact rates are going down. So this is a really it's sort of a new tactic, but it's really effective way to increase voter turnout. And so we know we got a lot more people to the polls through those relational Get Out the Vote messages. And then we held 1,882 VR events out in the community, as well as 366 classroom presentations. As students are getting back into school, we are going back in with them. We had 30 civic fellows on campuses across North Carolina in the fall. And we had 3,145 paid hours at our VRA sites. That's our voting right ambassador sites. Those are, and those early voting sites I mentioned earlier. So they were the ones going up to folks, getting them to send those relational Get Out the Vote messages, as well as being there to help if people had problems. And so we had a lot of paid staff, 131 paid staff, and then 83 volunteer hours completed, and we were also at several HBCUs, including Central Livingstone, Elizabeth City State, and Winston-Salem State. Okay, and then some of our new programs that we did last year at NC State. This is one I worked on. We worked with My Brother's Keeper Wake County, Evolved Mentoring, and the Wake County Schools to host a couple field trips. And at those field trips, high school students got to participate in some games. They got a presentation on voting, and they participated in a voting simulation where they actually stood in line, walked into a room, got a ballot on a sales tax referendum, voted on it, put it in a box, got a sticker. And that may sound pretty boring, and it is, but that's the sort of programming that we know is really effective for increasing turnout once those students turn 18, because they'll actually remember voting and they'll know it's not that hard. and I can do it. So that's one of the programs we're excited to keep running. We also developed the Activate curriculum for high school and college students that can be expanded to community participatory learning sessions, an opportunity to have a presentation that's not just a slideshow about voting, but actually gets people up and moving. And this is the vote tripling that I mentioned, talking to folks on their way out of the polls. We started in the primary and then scaled up. We had the largest nonpartisan voter protection program for early voting sites, most calls to the voter hotline. And we broke barriers and built trust and relationships to serve more voters with it in diverse partnerships across North Carolina. So a lot of new stuff. But this is there we are. This is the cold hard reality, is that turnout was down last year. And sometimes people are like, oh, well, you did all that work and turnout was still down. Well, there's 25 of us on staff at You Can Vote and 11 million people in North Carolina. So, we're working hard, but we are still, there are all of these, big trends that are going to affect turnout. And so what we see in these slides, I've got 2022 on top, 2018 on the bottom, and you can see in most demographic categories, turnout was down. Not all of them. Some categories did increase turnout, but especially for young voters, 2022 turnout was pretty low. And we went from about 53% in 2018 to 51%. And still a lot better than 2014, right? 2014 was just 44%. But the question is, what is this going to do to 2024 turnout? And I'm not saying 2024 turnout will be lower than 2020 because 2022 was lower than 2018. That's not how it works. What I'm saying is a lot of people didn't get the chance to practice their voting skills last year. And that means that 2024 could take a lot more work. So let's go to the next slide. We know that voting is a habit. And so if we look at the 2018 turnout of 53%, that definitely helped with our record-breaking 75% turnout in 2020 in North Carolina. So if the turnout was in 2022 was 51%, what does that mean? And then this is especially important for young voters. So we've got all these folks turning 18 this year and next year who are going to be voting for the first time in 2024, because that's the first time they'll be eligible. But we also know that because youth turnout was down in 2022, there's a lot of people who didn't get the chance to experience that success and learn how to vote last year. And so if we look at these sort of slides or the charts on the right, Kate, if you could just slide your cursor like over there, like you can see people who, this is everybody, and we had 75% turnout, but voters who also voted in 2018 came out at 15 points higher. And if they voted in 2019, it was 21 points higher. And if they voted in both of those, it was almost 22 points higher. And as you can see, that's right under 100%. That is as good as it gets in terms of turnout. And for young voters, it's even more extreme, 60% turnout, which was great. But if they had voted in 2018, those voters came out almost 19 points higher. Voters who voted in 2019, it was almost 28 points higher, and then 32 points higher if they did both. And so we know that there were fewer young voters out in North Carolina in 2022, which means that blue column, that's kind of done. But fortunately, we still have a chance for that green column. And as you can see, that's a much bigger effect. So the best way we can get folks to vote in 2024 is to get them to vote in 2023. And that is why we're going to talk about our strategy for this year. It is not an off year. Now, some places don't have elections. Raleigh, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, people who live in unincorporated areas of the county. Unfortunately, they don't get the chance to vote this year, but there's still a lot of huge cities, Charlotte, High Point, Cary, Durham. These places are all having elections this year, and the more young people we can get out there, the better turnout is going to be in 2024. Because when you think about it, that 5% drop from 2018, it was 29% turnout for young people, 24% in 2022. That's about 50,000 young voters, plus all the people turning 18. These are people who haven't had the chance to successfully find their polling place, successfully research their sample ballot, update their registration if they moved. A lot of them, you know, they may have been in one college in 2020, now they're out in the world. So we need to find them this year, get them updated to the right county so that when they show up on election day, they don't get turned away. And then help them experience what it is like to successfully vote. That's 50,000 people that we got to find and prep for 2024. And again, the best way to do that for 2024 is to get them out for 2023. So, and you may think, I don't know, I don't think young people really care about city council. No, they do. And I was just at a panel at UNC last week where they were talking about how they're so turned off by national politics, but they get pretty excited to find out about local elections, all of the powers that our local officials have that affect us every day. And it doesn't have that baggage of national politics. And that can be where they really get excited. So we have a great opportunity this year to not only get more young people and all sorts of people voting in our local elections, but just know that every person we turn out this year, almost guaranteed to vote next year. So this is the best thing. If you are concerned about 2024, the best thing you can do is to get folks out in 2023. And if you're in a place without elections, let's at least get their voter registration updated. So we need y'all to come out, get to a training this year if you haven't been to one. If you're already trained, please check our website. We have events coming up all over. And we really got to start finding all these people now because we got to talk to everybody. It's simple, but it's time consuming. So we got a lot of work to do.